Since the beginning of their history, the smallfolk of Therenor have hidden themselves out of sight of the realm's gargantuan beasts and primordial giants. As these young nations carve a way of life for themselves in the unexplored wildlands, it was important to establish a way they can hold their own against the beasts which sought to consume them. Enter the Summiteers, a realm-wide service of wilderness stewards, with members stationed in nearly every town and city in Therenor. Conservationists trained to navigate the most treacherous of terrain and engage with threats in the field. This class of rangers uses specialized tools to trap, slow, and subdue even the largest of creatures. Before we get started, I want to give a quick update to the art and writing contest we're hosting on Discord. Last video we introduced 4 new Therenor races and asked the community to develop their own player characters, either drawing them or writing a story about how they became adventurers. We're extending the deadline to the 18th, so if you want a chance to win some custom art or a set of dice from us, join us over on Discord. The first Summiteers were volunteers. Miners, wilderness guides, trappers, and guards who have banded together to drive off the newly developing dragons, which would form underground dangerously close to their homes. Among the smallfolk, dwarves are the most familiar with the role dragons play as Therenor's immune system, just as they are familiar with the untold destruction a dragon left to mature can cause. Should these dragons emerge, they would often flock to mountainous smallfolk settlements and wreak havoc. The original Summiteers used what they had on hand: hiking staves, mountain climbing gear, bear traps, and length of chain from shackles to immobilize their agile targets and neutralize them. Devoting themselves to upholding the sanctity of the wilds, they were among the first organized martial groups to make strides towards preservation of the realm's land, the rehabilitation of its wildlife, and the relocation of creatures that wandered too far from their natural habitats. Living by their motto, "No mountain too big, no life too small," the Summiteers are called upon in dire circumstances, and were celebrated as local heroes who would risk their lives for their neighbors and the land they called home. Of course, the Summiteers were not universally loved. There was an early resentment towards the new conclave, one which still exists today in some of the more traditional dwarven communities. Those who worked in the dwarven kingdom often saw the Summiteers as lazy, taking advantage of the few and far in between dragon attacks as a cheap way to skirt around their expected dwarven duties. Summiteers spent most nights above ground training or surveying land, while the standard dwarf lived in oppressive darkness, routinely summoned to take part in the mandatory development of their grid-like cities. For the hard-working noble dwarf, their subterranean kingdom is a source of great pride and joy, and the opportunity to enact the Ore-Father's will and take part in its grand construction was an immense honor. The king at the time made no official decree in regard to those few dwarves who chose to defy his summons. While some saw this as a silent, understanding approval, many saw their act of disobedience as dishonorable, borderline treasonous. Present-day Therenor's dwarves are much more inclined to engage with folks both above and below the soil, and many which permanently reside topside can trace their family roots to the first few generations of Summiteers. Throughout the years, Summiteers have developed a variety of tools to improve their effectiveness in the field. Some are simple, like darts laced with the tranquilizing secretions of subterranean fungi, ceramic whistles that mimic animal calls, weighted iron ropes to trip or contain creatures, and a variety of baits, antidotes, and tonics. Others, on the other hand, are more advanced: minor explosives for clearing or obstructing passageways, and deterring foggers clamped to fur or skin near the face, designed to release a steady flow of sneezing and choking gas made from ground spices and minerals. There was a tool for nearly every job, and the Summiteers always came prepared. As their armory increased, so did their numbers. In present-day Therenor, the Summiteer conclave has expanded greatly. Seen as a shining example of smallfolk unity, the Summiteers are now officially funded by the current Ore-Father, with outposts installed in most of Therenor's towns and cities. While most known for their giant beast slaying, this is not their only purpose. When not on call, they're wilderness guides, trappers, survival educators, and even animal rehabilitators, nursing many of their subdued foes back to health before re-releasing them in their proper habitats. Since their inception, dragon emergences across Therenor have only increased in numbers. Coupled with recent hostile territory disputes involving the realm's giants, the Summiteers' unique set of skills are more valuable than ever. To keep up with the demand, the once dwarven-centric conclave now recruits from all walks of life, training in the field with more seasoned rangers and quickly weeding out those who cannot handle what it means to be a Summiteer. Despite the increased activity and the urgent need for more Summiteers, these two issues pale in comparison to Brock, the Hill Giant King, and the devastation his holy rampage has caused across the realm. The Summiteers have since taken up a major role in the defense against his abnormal Hill Giant army. In the past, a wayward Hill Giant would likely have been tranquilized and relocated by a Summiteer squad, but in today's climate, they have little choice but to slay the ones that have developed Brock's taste for intelligent flesh. While this ruthlessness has made Therenor's dwarven settlements hopeful bastions against the Hill Giant threatened Therenor, many Summiteers feel conflicted in their new positions. For ages, the Giants have helped keep the realm balanced, but now tasked with slaying them, many veteran members have hung up their helms and resigned, either to dedicate their lives to the spirits, or to exit smallfolk society entirely in favor of one of many druidic circles scattered throughout the realm. So why did we make the Summiteers? We thought it'd be very cool to explore a new way for smallfolk to value and cherish the realm outside of the previously discussed religious or druidic aspects. As a world with a focus on ecology, we wanted to look towards real-life conservation efforts as an inspiration for a force in Therenor. The Summiteers were greatly inspired by park rangers, whose role in upholding the natural world through their maintenance, education, and conservational efforts was something we felt would make sense as a presence in the realm. Another influence was mountain climbers, especially because of the dramatic terrain of the land and the size of the Summiteers' targets. Okay, I can already hear the comments, let's get it out of the way right now. How do you begin to world build a society that's at odds with giants that isn't very familiar to the average anime watcher? Our Summiteers originated as a task force that specialized in the dispatch of dragons. These dragons are highly erratic and fast, so they needed gear that would either help them keep up or slow the dragon down. While Summiteers Gear can be and is used for mobility, its primary use is for locking down single, large targets, as we'll go over right now. Every Summiteer is trained with a unique set of equipment called Summiteers Gear, which includes a special weapon called a Summiteers Staff, boots, a helm, and leg guards. Used to aid in wilderness exploration, the Summiteers Staff is a large metal or hardwood hiking stick affixed with a massive mace-like spearhead, the flanges on the sides of this spear opening in a manner reminiscent of a grappling hook. While an effective tool in melee combat, the staff excels just outside of this range. When swung, the head of the staff unlatches from the base, launching forwards and leaving behind a trail of wired rope. Depending on the power behind the launch and the size of the target, when the spearhead connects, it can puncture up to one of two depths, the force generated activating the spearhead and flinging the spring-loaded sides open, affixing itself in place. The Summiteers can then leverage this new connection against their foes, rooting themselves in place to prevent a target from fleeing, or using a target's thrashing to drag themselves closer. Once engaged with a target that's either been hooked or punctured by the staff, a pointed pommel on the other end of the weapon can be used as a more traditional spear. The Summiteers staff went through a few iterations before it became the tool it is today. Mechanically, the staff began as an unnamed weapon with the two-handed finesse and reach properties. Some early concepts for the gear were dual-wielded grappling hooks, hatchets, and eventually climbing picks, though this soon would change to become the weapon it is now. One of the biggest issues with a staff that grapples targets was finding a way to be able to damage the target after you've activated the staff in a grapple. So the spiked pommel actually ended up working out really nicely. The Summiteers also have cleated boots, used to grip into flesh and stone alike, as well as leg guards, rounded for gliding across surfaces, as they're dragged towards or dragged by a creature they're attempting to subdue. For these pieces of equipment, we took a look at some more traditional hiking gear to use as inspiration. Crampons have both the vicious look and functionality to warrant including it within the Summiteers Gear. The sample Summiteers helm provides both protection and a source of light. Different models are fueled in different ways, ranging from oil lanterns and glowing runestones to simple bioluminescent fungi. The helm's light is especially useful for foggy mornings, midnight calls, or subterranean expeditions. The inspiration for the helms come from the iconic look of the US Park Ranger campaign hat, also taking inspiration from medieval nasal helms with a couple extra additions. A few different variations are inspired by the Jormungandr style of Viking Age helms with a rounded mask and nasal. Some of these designs also included both cloth and chainmail hoods, a must-have for any ranger. Considering the Summiteers' origins are dwarvish, we wanted the hat to have some usage underground, which warranted developing it further into something like a miner's helm. So these are our Summiteers. We really enjoyed being able to add another layer to our smallfolk and reshape the way that they engage with the realm. If you like the concept of the Summiteers and want to play as one in your home game, a playable subclass is available in our Discord. We'd love to get some community feedback and fine-tune the subclass for the future. If you liked what you saw, make sure to follow us and check out our other videos set in the world of Therenor. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next time.